Hi, my name is Steve, and in today's video, I will be providing a short overview of a tool called Traefik, some use cases in which can help, and a short demo. What is Traefik? Well, Traefik, if we Google it, is the leading open source reverse proxy and load balancer for HTTP and TCP-based applications. It's easy, dynamic, and full-featured. Easy, I don't know about that. Dynamic, full-featured, yeah, I think it is that. Okay, so it is a leading open source reverse proxy. Okay, so for those who don't know what a reverse proxy is, don't worry, I got you. The first thing is imagine what a regular proxy is, and if you're unfamiliar with that is, if you imagine you're a student at a university or like a high school and you don't have a computer, you would go to a library or a computer lab. And in this lab, you would get to use the school's computers. Most likely, when you try to use a school computer, you're not actually going to have full access to the internet. Like, you can go, you probably just can't go to like certain websites. So what happens is you at the lab will try to access like a site you shouldn't, and then you'll hit a proxy. And the proxy just filters and checks to see if you can go to the site or not. So to illustrate this is like pretend like my machine's here. I'll just highlight it here. Pretend like these are LAN computers, and then you want to go to the internet this way. You would pass through a proxy here. Okay, and just to illustrate it, like it would look like that, essentially. So this is a regular proxy, and don't worry, the link here, it's public, so if you want, you can use my example and look at it as much as you want. Okay, and so a reverse proxy is just the inverse of this. It's just the opposite. So it's basically a connection from the internet coming in to a proxy and then determining if you're allowed to go or the route you're supposed to take. Now that we know what Traefik is, how can it help us? One common problem it can help out with is for those of us who have a home lab, we typically only have one IP address. And with that single IP address, sometimes we wish to expose multiple backend services that all share a common port 443. For example, my vSphere runs on web interface 443, but that same port 443 is also for vCloud Director. I also run Veeam in my home lab. It runs on a different port. My port listings are here. And Cloudian also listens on port 443. It's not a web interface. We have a web interface for Cloudian at port 8443. Another thing Traefik can help us with is certs. A lot of times these backend services come with self-signed certs, and Traefik has Let's Encrypt built into it. So using Traefik in a domain, we can get a wildcard certificate through Let's Encrypt.
Going back to our problem of only having a single IP address in our home lab and us wanting to expose multiple backend services, some of which listen to the same common listening port of 443 or otherwise, let's take a few minutes to see what that looks like. Typically speaking, what it looks like without Traefik is you from the internet will connect to your router at home, and then inside the router you'll have a port forward rule to go to the backend service that you wish to expose, like so. Now, when you do this, you cannot create another rule, so you cannot add a second rule to go to a second service if it listens on the same port. So proof is in the pudding. I'll just show you. Here is my router on the right, and here I already have a rule 443 going to this IP address. Okay, so if I try to create another rule to a different IP address internally, but listening on the same port, it won't allow me to create this. Okay? The current rule I do have actually is this rule that goes this particular pathway. It goes from the internet to my router to Traefik. And Traefik will allow me to route to any of the services on the backend that I've defined. Visually, you can see this if you use my diagram. You can just click here, 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 and you can see basically the way I have it configured. Okay? If you're wondering what this looks like on the actual configuration side, here it is. Just gonna have my actual config. Oops. So here you see my vCenter host header address matches here, and down towards the bottom, you'll actually see where it routes internally. vCenter routes to this address internally, and the Cloudien Management Console is a neat one because the router list is on 443, it passes it to Traefik on 443, reads the host header for CMC, but it routes to a different listing address. So here you can see it's there. Okay. Another thing that's really cool is that in Traefik, I have defined it so that if you try to connect to any of the addresses via HTTP, it actually routes to HTTPS. So just to show you, if I go vcenter.100.steve.com, notice it immediately goes to the secure version. As mentioned earlier, the other thing about Traefik is that it has Let's Encrypt built in, and some of the web services that we've deployed on our backend don't have a Let's Encrypt, or that just comes with self-signed SSLs. So for example, here you can see the address, vcenter100steve.com, has the lock, and if I look at inspect the actual cert, the cert is valid. And I think I can see that it's via Let's Encrypt. A common thing is if I go to the actual web address of my vCenter, notice it's not secure. So this is a free way to use just a free wildcard cert like that. The Let's Encrypt is free. And the same is also true for a Cloudien node. If I go, I can go to DC1. So actually I have to go to the web port. So here you can see it's also not secure. But if I go to CMC, it routes it automatically, but with security, with a secure cert. So even though I only have one of each instance in my Homelab, another thing that you can, like another common case is if you had two Cloudien clusters, or you had two vSpheres, or you had two of the exact same service, just like two separate environments behind a single IP address. This is another use case that it's not common, but Traefik would help you in this particular case. Thanks for watching my video regarding the tool called Traefik. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll try to do my best to answer them when I can. If there is enough interest, I can make a future video detailing how I integrated this into my Homelab.